Open your mind's door to J-Snip 4. Open your mind's door to J-Snip 4. American dream, relocated to Tennessee. Now he's on 10 acres, GMO free. Planting info seeds in the minds of the sheep.
Alright, time for a WebBot report. This is kind of part 2, if you will. But I just kind of went over the latest video. And you may hear me repeat one or two things from the last video I did called part 1, whatever. But this is basically part 2. But though part 1 has a few more things, I think, because I used prior WebBot reports from the last week and the week before that. So this particular one, even though it's called part 2, is really just the very most recent. And again, this is a summary. It's my summary that I put together based off of what I listened to. It's not every single thing he talked about, but it's about quite a bit. So it goes kind of like this. Actually, let's do something a little different. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get a shot of this or not, but this is kind of like this little creek thing. It splits off in 3 ways. So let's see. I'm gonna stand down here. Actually, let's do this. Let's see if let's do this instead. Let me just take a peek at what I got in sight. And that should be good. There we go. Figured while I'm reading you some doom, you know, might as well have a nice background. So, a dollar flood will be coming back to the USA from foreign countries. US dollar flood. In other words, people dumping it, countries dumping it, pushing it back into America, rather than people buying the bonds, buying the treasuries. There's going to be an influx of the opposite coming back to America. Very soon, cost of living, bills, etc. The bills that matter, you know, not like the crap like a TV or a computer or a toy, but electric bill, you know, your bills will be going up. A scandal will break. That will not be that's not going to be the event, but a scandal will break. And that will actually trigger the event, in which it comes out that a company, and I'm not sure what the scandal is yet, but it will lead to basically something that comes out that a company and the US government will be exposed as having an agreement with each other. This agreement will be simply to screw and defraud the public. Nothing more, nothing less. No other reason but to defraud the public together, in cooperation, the company and the government. It's not going to be a national security reason, or like, you know, the bank, we allowed the banks to do this because if they didn't do it, national security problem, you know, the economy would have failed. No, this is a blatant defrauding of the public. No other reason. So that'll be coming. A new incident will happen, such as some type of false flag, another Boston bombing, you know, something like that. He says it's most likely not related to the Boston bombing, but it could be. But he doesn't think it is. But there will be another incident. We'll get the ball rolling where the Department of Homeland Security basically gets the go signal and will attempt to make their move against the people in certain geographic locations. I think I mentioned this in the last video about this geographic location thing. Top government officials, this is another part, such as senators or congressmen, top officials, etc., will be resigning, but will be in kind of a catch-22 in that they know they screwed the people and they need to step down, but may not want to right away or feel like they can't because they lose their power and security if they do. But the longer they stay in power and screw the people, the more pissed off the people get. So they're kind of realizing, I'm going to go ahead and retire now, but wait a minute, these people are following me around and threatening me, whatever, you know, that kind of thing. It says a certain view will come out against the jackbooted thugs. In other words, probably the Department of Homeland Security or the feds, whatever. It's labeled as the jackbooted thug. So a certain view is going to come out. In other words, kind of like you and I already have this view that they're a bunch of tyrants, plain and simple. But a view is going to start to kick in where everyone you kind of talk to kind of knows, like, yeah, what the hell's going on with these people? Who the hell do they think they are? What do they think they're doing? This isn't Nazi Germany, you know. Where a lot more people will talk about that and understand what it means. So this view is going to come out against jackbooted thugs. And within a week or so from that happening, we should see the Department of Homeland Security make their move against the people. It does not work, and it will fail. There are so many cameras now that, you know, nowadays, that when this next event or false flag happens, it will be caught on picture and or video, so much so, so awesomely so, that it finally disproves the government as being the perpetrators in the big fraud once and for all. In other words, they can try to say it was a conspiracy or was this, but the video or photographic evidence will be so powerful that they're just caught with their pants down. There going to be no escape from this time. Heavy weather in the European continent that affects the economy as well as disputing a lot of other stuff. Not disputing, I don't know why I have disputing there. Heavy weather, I think I meant to put disrupting. Heavy weather in Europe, the European continent, affects the economy as well as disrupting a lot of other stuff such as transportation, but not a whole lot of data to support anything real specific. Possible volcanic activity in there as well. Some areas are seeing food production problems that will be affected for a decade or more. Bad weather in general will be the cause, and it ain't going away anytime soon, especially in the European area. Advancing disease becomes a problem, most likely a bird flu or something like that. The word poisoning was also attached to this particular set of data as well. The poisoning aspect seems to be tied to the United States. They will try to blame it on organic or natural type of food as opposed to the corporate food, such as fast food and big giant corporation farming. So those entities will try to blame it on the natural guy, the organic guy, when this happens. But in reality, it came from the corporate food arena, so to speak. The disease appears to be affecting young teenagers more than anyone else. Anyone who gets it and survives will have systemic problems the rest of their life. It will be passed from human to human contact, but most likely from actually touching someone, such as shaking a hand or that kind of thing. It may start in China first, and or Chinese/Asian people in general. And this is interesting because I remember Lindsey Williams, I'm pretty sure it was Lindsey Williams, a while ago, like as in 2 years ago probably, I'm pretty sure it was Lindsey Williams, said that the elite told him when they were talking about, hey, watch China, China's the big one, that they also said China's going to catch a cold. That's all I told him. China's going to catch a cold. That's very interesting considering that, like today, yesterday, the day before, I'm hearing about this HN whatever bird flu starting to really take shape over in China, affecting the Asian people. Very interesting. Gold and silver. Piles of coins. Nothing but good words in relation to those things. The month of May is actually referenced in the data. So this, in a matter of days, is May. And of course, by the way, which I need to do a second video on this, just to make it known, but I'll go ahead and say it now. I know there's a little movement on May 1st, which is go buy some precious metals. Don't buy 1 or 2 coins. If you've got to buy 10 coins, 20 coins, 100 coins, buy a bulk sum somewhere. And I'm going to tell you now, I don't care if it's not silver eagles, if it's just some Indian heads or some other, you know, sunshine mint coins or something, if you can't get your hands on the eagles. Not to mention, I know the spot price, above spot price, is like $5. It's funny how silver's $24, and yet you go to anywhere that even claims they have some, which most don't, they're already sold out, are charging like $5 over spot. So you're back to $30 again. That's interesting, isn't it? That it really was $30 the other day, you know, days and days and days ago, but now all of a sudden they smashed it down to 23, 24, yet you still got to pay 30 to get it. So, as also predicted by previous webbots, there would be a disconnect between the paper price and the real physical price. I believe that's starting to take shape now. That month of May is attached to the data specifically. Now, he also did talk about Bitcoin, not too much in this report, barely at all, but the one before that, and maybe the one before that, he said something about Bitcoin trying to make its move as some kind of place, make its place in the world amongst people that are fed up with the system of all the governments and want to use that as a means of buying and selling things with, as a monetary system. But there's not 100% backing by it. He is seeing, though, there will be pretty high moves and pretty devastating low moves. In other words, volatility like you can't believe coming into Bitcoin. And I'll get into that in a minute at the end of this. Big shakeup coming in the currency trading very soon. Like the Forex market, which is currency, the currency trading. Some people will commit suicide due to how bad that market gets. This could just be the currency trading market, but appears to also be related to other things such as derivatives and other paper markets / trading. So it could be both. It could just be the monetary or money trading, the Forex, etc. markets. And again, people will be committing suicide over what happens with that, which to me says massive crash is coming. Some type of scandal coming out of Department of Homeland Security in which, for example, something like they were raiding people's safety deposit boxes and or private vaults which contain gold, silver, other valuables, and not for the government, by the way, but because they're jackbooted thugs and decided to take it for themselves while they were doing some kind of raid and then kept it in their pocket. Pointing out that these are a bunch of, felons that are running the Department of Homeland Security and thieves. So that will be coming apparently. Interest rates, I guess across the board, should be breaking out soon, and this wreaks havoc on the bankers, banking, and finance in general. Now keep in mind, last time they jacked up interest rate, I studied this stuff. I looked back at the Depression era time, and after the Depression happened in 1929, housing dove about 50% roughly across the board. Whatever the prices were, the houses went down about half of that. So what happens where prices are now, which are still way below where they're supposed to be in the United States and in the rest of the world for that matter, because everyone experienced the boom, not just America, but you and I, most of us, we live in America, so this is focused on America. When they raise interest rates, that means the home loans will go up as far as the rates. So if now 3, 4, 5% loans are normal, which are like a historic low, by the way, for home loans, what happens when they start jacking the rates up? 7, 8, 9, 10%, 12%. Back in the 1980s, it was like 15, 16, 18% for home loans. The prices have no choice but to come down. Reason being is very simple. The average person right now making a salary or whatever money you're making isn't really going to change per se. Okay, sure, your bills might be going up. That's probably certain, or is probably a certainty, but your paycheck's going to stay the same. So let's just assume you can only afford a $1,000 a month house payment, right? Just bear with me for easy math. $1,000 a month house payment, mortgage, whatever it is. What happens when house interest rates start going up for a home loan? That $1,000 a month people can afford doesn't change. So when you go to the bank, what's my monthly payment going to be, Mr. Bank? It's going to be $1,300 a month. $1,300, why is it that? Well, we had interest rates just rose. Oh, so you see what happens? Sorry, banker, I'm not qualified anymore. I got to walk away. And the next guy, oh, I'm not qualified either. So this natural thing occurs, which is the price of housing will come down until that $1,000 a month payment is met. And that's just an example I'm using. So in other words, you asked $150,000, your payment's $100 or $1,000 a month. All of a sudden, interest rates start spiking. People don't stop buying houses all of a sudden, right? The world continues. So that new people, right? You move out, you get married, got to get a house. That whole cycle is not stopping. So new people will be getting loans, and they'll find out that $150,000 house, which they can easily pay $1,000 for now, has to drop down to $100,000, not $150,000. Got to drop down to $100,000 because that interest rate went up. Nothing else changed, just the interest rate. But the guy who owned the house is forced to let it go for $100,000 now. And assuming he has that in the house and can walk away and make money, maybe he'll do that. Most people are already underwater. Most people that own a house who are trying to sell it realize I can't sell it until the price, till housing recovers. I keep hearing that, man, well, maybe when housing recovers in a couple years, I think I'll do. And I'm telling myself, I'm not saying it out loud because I don't want to hurt their feelings, but my mind is saying, there isn't a chance in hell there's a recovery. Ain't gonna happen. Not anytime soon, anyways. Not anytime in a realistic view of the word soon. No. So there will be no recovery. So you'll be paying these payments upside down, and then you're going to see what really happens when the interest rates start to go up. You're really underwater when that happens. That'll be the best time for someone who hasn't bought a house yet to potentially go and buy one, except you're going to be paying a lot more money in interest on that same stupid loan. The person who's sitting on a pile of cash or silver and is waiting on it with that silver for the price to explode, they may be able to go buy a house, cash money, no loan, no interest rate, have a nice day. Because if you got houses that break down into the $50,000 range because the interest rates go so high, it won't take a whole lot of silver that you bought at $10, $20, $30, $40 an ounce when it's $200, $300, $400 an ounce to go and pay for that cash. So bear with me on that, my little opinion on the side there. This is the final piece here. Cliff High thinks, he's the owner of the webbot, thinks that Bitcoin will lead the way, so to speak, for gold and silver prices. In other words, he feels that Bitcoin will be a dominant factor during the time when gold and silver are also in the spotlight and rising in price. He thinks Bitcoin can go into the tens of thousands of dollars, as well as gold and silver going way higher as the problems with the US dollar start to intensify, including when the rest of the world starts to heavily dump those dollars back into America instead of the other way around, as I first mentioned in this report. He says you may be surprised how fast gold and silver rise when they start to actually do this climb. Words like joyful, gleeful, shocked, very surprised are attached to the words gold and silver, that particular data set. He ended it though by saying we may finally get the old hip hip hooray for gold and silver and possibly Bitcoin too. I had to scratch my head on that one. We'll finally get that hip hip hooray for gold and silver and possibly for Bitcoin too. So, keeping in mind that Bitcoin is like a stock. It's traded on Wall Street, so to speak. You can go and trade Bitcoins. And right now, which I haven't even looked today, but I know they were as high as $260, and they got smashed down to $109, and they got smashed down to $79, and they halted trading for like a full day or half a day or something. I think it was a half a day, 12-hour period of time before they let anyone trade it again. Let's just assume, because remember, I'm trying to give the best advice that is the safest advice too. If you want to play with fire, and you think I'm going to go out and buy 2 Bitcoins, and I don't know what the price is today, but let's just say it's $150 for a Bitcoin right now, and you buy 2 of them, that's $300. The worst that can happen to your $300 is it gets flushed down a toilet, you get nothing. Plain and simple. The best that can happen is if it went to, let's say, $10,000 times 2, because you bought 2 Bitcoins, that was $300 total. The best that could happen is you might see $20,000 or more, because he did say, I remember him saying it could go to 10,000 or tens of thousands possibly, he said, as the currency crisis hits the United States during that period. However, and you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, I've actually been thinking, what if I bought 1 Bitcoin? What if I bought 2 Bitcoins? Knowing, and I'm giving the advice, I'm not a financial advisor, but I have my opinion advice, is that I've lost a lot more money than $300 in my time. I've pissed away money, on stupid crap, for God's sake. So, it wouldn't hurt too bad if you lost $300 right now. And again, I don't know where Bitcoin is today. It could be 170 or 80, 150. I haven't looked in a matter of days. But could you afford to lose $300 and gamble on it going to tens of thousands or 10,000 minimum, let's just say, man, that wouldn't be a bad idea. However, it is on the stock market, and if they halt trading, because they can halt trading when it crashes and they can halt trading as it explodes. If they halt trading, you cannot sell your Bitcoins no matter how bad you try. If some major event happens and the stock market is taken out, and Iranian terrorists, Syrian terrorists knocked out the U.S. stock market and stocks were destroyed, or you want to get out of the Bitcoin, you couldn't. It's a gamble you have to take and understand. You can't get your money out. When 9/11 happened, people couldn't get their money moved out in nothing for a matter of days. So, on the flip side, if you had physical silver in your hand, it can't go to zero. A Bitcoin can go to zero. It's a physical object, and you can take it to the store, barter with somebody who knows, oh, at least I know it's silver, it's real, and you might be able to do some kind of trading in an emergency. You're not going to be able to trade a Bitcoin in an emergency. I can't go to my neighbor's house out here in the middle of nowhere, or even in the city. Most people don't know about gold and silver even in the city, or Bitcoins, excuse me, and say, hey, can I trade you a digital Bitcoin? When the internet comes back up, can I trade you this Bitcoin? What? A what coin? They're not going to know what it is. But at the same time, if you're just trying to look at possibly getting in and getting out at the right opportune moment, and you want to gamble on 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoins, whatever you feel comfortable with buying, go ahead. And if they destroy the price, like I said they would, and they did, and then they did it even worse the next day, right after I said it, you have to be prepared that they'll do it again. Because they're going to try to flush out the weak hands. But every time they do that, as Cliff I said in one of his other reports, a new thing is happening. People are saying, oh, a buying opportunity. Kind of like gold and silver. Oh, another buying opportunity. Let me go buy a Bitcoin. They crashed the market today. So then more people go in and get Bitcoins. And then they wait for the price to rise. Then they crash it. Then more people get Bitcoins and the price to rise again. And every time it rises, if you're smart enough, I guess, if you're watching it close enough, you can get out at the top. That kind of thing. I don't think I'm going to sit here and say that I'm going to go buy a Bitcoin and then try to play it, well, when it's up to 200 again, let me sell. If he's saying that he thinks, and this isn't a guarantee, but it's a possibility that Bitcoins can go into the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, US dollars, during this crisis, then it might be worth a chance, as much as I hate to tell you to play with paper money, paper markets. It's only $100 something, $200-$300 total if you do decide to do this. And if by chance it did go into the thousands of dollars, you could cash out, get your thousands of dollars, and then turn around and go buy some silver. Physical asset. However, what's the price of the silver going to be at when this is occurring? Because silver could be hundreds of dollars an ounce, as opposed to right now $24, $25 an ounce. So it's kind of, what heads you win, tails you lose, or heads you lose, tails you lose, or whatever. So it's in the report. I'm going to report it. But again, he ended it by saying, we may finally get the hip hip hooray we've been waiting all these years for gold and silver prices, and, quote, possibly Bitcoin. So I've given you the pluses, the minuses of Bitcoin. 100% surety is gold and silver. You can't go wrong, especially silver. So, hope you enjoyed my view of the wilderness. I hope the birds, the turtles, whatever the hell else is around here flying around me, enjoyed listening to me give them the webbot. Can I get a little buzz? Can I get a little bumblebee buzz if you enjoyed the webbot? No buzz. Nope. No buzzing. They didn't enjoy the webbot. Take care.